Hey there friends, how's it going? So welcome back to this course on practical music theory, and in this video I just want to give a quick explanation about the chords in each major key. Now this is important because whenever we're playing a song we're going to be in a certain key, right? And typically all the chords we're using in that song are coming from the chord family of that key. And in general terms, all these chords in any given key, right? The key of C, for example, has, a C, a D minor, an E minor, an F, and a G, and an A minor. I'm going to ignore the diminished chord because we're never going to use that, right? But those chords are typically going to sound good together, right? It doesn't mean you can just play any of those chords in any order and you magically have music, right? There are going to be some sort of general, rules and conventions and things we follow about making pleasing melodies and combining those with chords. But in general, those chords are all built upon the same 7 notes. So if we use them together, there's going to be like a sameness to them that works in our favor, okay? So anytime you're playing a song, you're in a certain key, and the chords you're using, for the most part, there's occasional exceptions, but for the most part, the chords are coming from the chords in that key family. So how are these chords determined? Well, the great part is, it's a single pattern. We take this pattern, right, and we apply it over the major scale of whatever key we're in. In the previous lesson, we looked at the major scale, and then we get the chords in that key. So for example, in the key of C, the notes are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, okay? Those are the notes in the C major scale. In other words, those are the notes in the key of C. Now, if we add this pattern on top of the notes, we get C major, that's our first chord, D minor, E minor, right? F major, G, and then the 6 is A minor, and then we have B, which would be B diminished. And again, diminished chords are so rarely used, I'm not really even going to talk about them in this lesson because it really isn't worth time at the moment, okay? So the important part is, no matter which key you're in, you take the major scale, you apply this pattern. Every key, the chords in that key follow this pattern. That's the great thing. So if we looked at the most popular keys on guitar, right? C, G, D, A, and E, you can see here the chords that are in each of those keys. So if we're playing in any of these keys, again, we're going to be using the chords in this key. It doesn't mean you have to use all the chords, but typically, the 1, the 4, and the 5, right? The 1st, 4th, and 5th chords, those are the major chords, right? The 2nd, 3rd, and 6th chords are the minor chords. The 1, the 4, and the 5 are probably the most frequently used. The 6th chord, which is a minor chord, is probably the next most often used. The 2nd and 3rd degrees of the scale, those chords are used sometimes, not all the time. But basically, this is what it looks like. Now, you could look at all 12 major keys and look at the chords in each of those keys. You don't need to memorize this. Just, if anything, memorize that pattern. Look at the pattern of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, right? The 1, the 4, and the 5 chords are major. The 2, the 3, and the 6 are minor. If you remember that, that's going to get you a lot of mileage, right? The next thing, as far as this big table goes, if you memorize anything beyond that, memorize those first 5 keys, right? The C, the G, the D, the A, and the E. And start by maybe just memorizing the 1, the 4, and the 5 in each of those keys. And you're going to see in those 5 most popular keys, there's no sharps and flats in the 1st chord, the 4th chord, and the 5th chord, right? Those are the most common chords used. So it's a very sort of relatively easy thing to remember if you spend some time with it. And it's going to be very helpful for you as well, okay? Now, before we move on to the next topic, there's one quick thing I want to talk about, which is how these chords are built using the major scale. And this is something that I connected the dots with way late in my music sort of self-teaching career, but I want to show it to you here, right? So let's look at the key of C major, for example, right? So this is the fretboard. This is showing all the notes in the key of C, right? Or C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C, okay? And the first 3 frets. Now here's the cool part, right? If we switch from the note names to showing the scale degrees, okay? I'd covered scale degrees in my previous lesson. You can watch that if you need a refresher on that. The scale degrees simply represent the number of each note in that major scale. So in the key of C major, right, we have our C is our 1, D is our 2, E is our 3, F is our 4, G is our 5, A is our 6, B is our 7, and then it starts over again at C. Here's the cool part. The first chord in the 1 chord, the chord based on the 1st degree, is the 1, the 3, and the 5. Okay, so the chord of C, which is the first note in the scale, that's a major chord. It's built off of the notes, the scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. So if I play all the 1, 3s, and 5s with a bass note of 1, because that's my root note, I get a C major scale, right? But here's the cool part. The next chord, the second degree of the scale, is D. And to build a minor chord based off of the second degree of any major scale, you do 2, 4, 6. So if you look at a D minor chord, notice that it's all 2, 4s, and 6s as far as the scale degrees in the key of C go, right? Again, we're in the key of C. We go to E minor. E minor, the third chord in any major scale, is going to be based on the 3, the 5, and the 7. So I play an E minor chord. You can see this, hopefully the recognizable pattern of E minor. It's built off of the scale degrees 3, 5, and 7, right? The fourth chord is our F, and the fourth chord in any major key is built off of the scale degrees 4, 6, and 1, right? And you guessed it, the 5 chord is going to be based off of the scale degrees 5, 7, and 2. And then the minor chord, the 6th degree of the major scale, gives us a minor chord, which is based off of the scale degrees 6, 1, and 3. Okay, and then diminished would be 7, 2, and 4. I share this with you because if you're ever looking at a fretboard diagram and it's showing scale degrees, it can be helpful just to keep this in mind, right? The 1, the 3, and the 5 within a major scale gives us the sort of the tonic, right? The 1 chord, but the 4, 6, 1 is going to give us the 4 chord. 5, 7, 2 is going to give us the 5 chord. That's a helpful thing that I wish I knew earlier. And again, if you just look at whatever key you're in, you look at the sort of fretboard diagram, you're going to see there's like this beautiful efficiency, right? It's these 7 notes, but these 7 notes give us these 7 chords, right? There's lots of overlap. Some of the chords share notes with other chords, but it's a very helpful thing to be aware of. And I wish I knew that a bit earlier because it kind of helps make the world a bit clearer and less foggy and demystifies it a bit. Okay, so those are the chords in each major key. Make sure you get the cheat sheet here. This is one of the things that's absolutely worth knowing because it's going to help us as we learn songs and as we write songs. And if we just want to doodle around and noodle and just make up stuff, you can sort of pick a key, just sort of play those chords in a random order, see what sounds good, and you'll be in good shape and on your way. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at Roman numeral notation really quick. This is just a fancy way of numbering the chords in each key, but it's really important to have a grasp of because it can communicate things a bit more effectively than just using the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so let's look at that in the next video, and I'll see you there, my friends. Bye-bye.